So, recently I have been hit with a big pressure hyperfixation.
Wow.
Even to the level of the FNAF era, you know? And guess what character I just absolutely fell in love with? I love the fishman. I love the fishman. And I thought, what better way is there for a 3D artist like me to make fan art of this guy than to make a whole entire freaking 3D model of him? Now, thing is, I'm a low poly artist. I'm not used to making, like high poly Disney style kind of models. I have done it before-ish, but like not properly, And for some reason, my insane self decided, hey, why don't I make my first mid-poly model be this guy? That would be cool. That would be a fun adventure. Oh boy, was it hard, and oh boy, was it fun. And now I am gonna share every single detail there is about it with you guys. Either way, let's get into it. Alright, so starting up, we need a good reference sheet. Alright, we need a good reference sheet to make a good 3D model. This is not just me talking and never ever touching 3D, because things here are important creative and technical decisions, because some things made here help me a lot once I'm making the actual 3D model. So there I am getting myself some Sebastian references and working up with them. Some of the things I decided to do for this model at least was reinterpret him a little bit. I have seen people do it and it is pretty cool, and I decided to do it myself, mostly because I am mildly obsessed with, like human anatomy and animal anatomy and making things like make sense together. I'm just a whole freaking huge world builder. And I just like to make things physically plausible, First thing I tried to do was figure out how freaking big he is. Because he's big, he's huge. Like in Roblox proportions, he is 11 players long, and that is insane. I was thinking of going with that insane size height for a moment, but then I just decided to tone it down again, because once in the 3D viewport, it was just insanely disproportionate. It was way too much. Here I made him a bit closer to the proportion of that one picture from the games. Yeah, the game art. That's what you know what I'm talking about. I did this by calculating. Well, not calculating, I drew out on top of this picture Sebastian with legs and then the player with legs, and from there I just saw how big the Sebastian with legs was in terms of player units, and then just decided to assume the player was, let's say, like 5'5" or something, whatever the average human height is in the world, and from there on, I just did math, and depending on how many players long the tail is, that's how many feet long he is. This was so eyeballed, I swear. It's not exact in the slightest. And it was pretty long, dang. I was baffled by how big he is. Right now what I'm doing is figuring out what should the proportions of this 3D model be, because in Blender, there's proportions in meters and stuff in Blender, and basically just if your character is 6 feet tall, canonically make them also 6 feet tall in Blender's proportion system units thing, stuff like that. That's the proportions we're working with. Also, I'm modifying his tail, not because I hate it, I like the snake boy, but you are not gonna be able to swim with a fin attached to a long noodle. As I told you, I'm a big world builder, and I like to have things like make sense anatomically and stuff. It's mostly because the reason why, sea snakes and stuff can swim is because they have like this flatter tail and stuff. That's also the reason why eels can swim, because their bodies are long but also like flat on the sides. This guy is long but not flat on the sides. And I think if we want to keep like the fins aesthetics, like make him fish boy and not eel boy, I think we're gonna need to add more fins, add a dorsal fin, add a pectoral fins, whales themselves have pectoral fins in order to be able to stay balanced in the water, otherwise he's gonna just like flail around and stuff. This is for the sake of balance. Balance for him to be able to swim and to be able to swim fast, because if Urban Shade wants to make a weapon, which with my very small understanding of the lore, that's what I'm assuming they wanted to make out of Sebastian, they probably want him to be able to swim fast enough to escape situations or whatever. They want to make something effective. If with this design it's not very effective, like physically. Maybe it's just me being very stingy about anatomy, but I just like to be alright. I like to have my things be anatomically accurate, you know? Yeah. I can't rest or keep drawing without knowing that that will be the case. I think this design resembles more, what's it called again? Oh my goodness, what is it called? Sturgeon. His tail resembles a sturgeon. And before you ask me what the heck a sturgeon is doing in the deep sea, I will ask you back, what the heck is a bull shark doing in the deep sea, alright? Again, I just think it's a good reference. It's a big fish. Obviously, fins modified for, you know, speed and stuff. But yeah, just trying to make it like more plausible for him to be able to swim in the first place. Lastly, when it comes to his tail, the reason why I made him like a spiny, spiky fish instead of like, you know, a fish like a shark where the fins are just like big lumps of cartilage and stuff. It's mostly just aesthetics and expressiveness, you know, like the whole fins flaring out when he's like angry or something. It's just more expressive. It gives him more character. It gives him more presence. It's completely an aesthetic choice. I just think it would make him look cool. It would give him personality, you know, more personality than this fishman already has. And it's easier to work with than stiff fins that sharks have when it comes to like animating them and stuff. Yeah, it's really just that. Here I am going to like more details into the upper body and such, you know, making the coat, making the clothes, making all of that very standard stuff. I make this, I make a version without the big coat, I make a version without hair, you know, like just the body. And, you know, I was planning on sharing this, publishing it somewhere and sharing it out with people so people can like use this model for animations and whatnot. And I wanted to make it versatile. You know, if people are gonna make animations of him, what if there's a scene, you know, like back in the lab days, just like be functional with that. So I made a naked body reference. I made one with just the shirt and one with the rest of the clothes, and then one without hair, one with hair, and such, because that's how we work here. Lastly, some other decisions were things like the surgery scars, because I think it's just more reasonable to think that instead of DNA stuff and then like the lure and his third arm growing out of his body, instead of them growing out of his body, I think it's more reasonable to think that they were grafted in through surgeries, the same way people graft branches into trees and such. And I don't know, it just makes more sense in my brain. I did struggle to try and layer the muscles of the third arm into the body. I was thinking like, oh, how do I make like a third peg and stuff? That is until I realized that there is this headcanon that he had 4 arms, but then one of them was amputated or severed off or something. And I realized that makes so much more sense. But I had already made the reference once I realized that, and I was already far into the process of 3D modeling, so it was too late to back out at that point. But still, I'm proud of the final result. I like it, honestly. Either way, then I just like made a very quick side view because some parts of reference making are just make something that you can understand, so you can, you know, like use it just as a reference. It doesn't have to be perfectly painted. It doesn't have to be like line art and stuff. It can just be the sketch like I'm doing right now. Of course, if someone else is gonna be the one using the reference, you will want to give more detail, give more insight into what certain things are, maybe make the side view less quick and more accurate. And really, I was the only one using the reference. I didn't really care about that. And at the end was just like adding things here and there, making it pretty, even if this doesn't have to be very pretty at all. Just drawing the fish boy, just drawing the fishman. Oh yeah, there's also the arms. I wanted to not struggle with, you know, like the shoulder rotation, and so I just decided to figure it out from the reference, you know, like with transformations and stuff, and then just make a big obvious point of rotation for the shoulder for me to be able to see once I'm 3D modeling. That is the nice thing about being able to make my own references, you know. I can make little things in the artwork that will help me later, that will actually be helpful once I'm modeling and rigging and all of that. And yeah, that's pretty much the reference art process, and we will move on into sculpting. So, first things first, make the reference the right size. Remember, if your character is 6 feet tall, make them 6 feet tall in Blender too. In this case, 34 feet long, or 60, like I tried at first, but then I just made it smaller because I should have made it smaller from the beginning. I don't know, that's just a rule of thumb I heard somewhere. I am usually used to box modeling, you know, like extruding the faces into the shapes I want, but in this instance I wanted to try some sculpting, because that is usually the traditional workflow of mid-poly models, and a mid-poly model is what we're doing right now. It's just a fun and useful exercise to try for the first time. Maybe not exactly for the first time, I did try it with a character I did not finish. And that character I didn't finish is exactly what I just imported in, and what you're seeing me working on right now, which is very useful because now I'm gonna be able to recycle it. Now it's mostly reshaping and reorganizing the shapes to actually be what I want them to be. From there, it's a matter of remeshing and starting to sculpt. It's pretty much my first time sculpting something more seriously. Yeah, it was fun. It's like playing with clay, but digitally, you know? Yeah, I'm not used to it, and it's maybe not like my preferred method of work, because, again, I am a low poly artist. I just like it better that way. It's a fun process. I enjoy sculpting. It's just, again, it's not how I usually like to get things done. I like it better when my results are fast, because sculpting is fun, but then retopologizing the entire thing is a slow process, and it doesn't give fast results. So while it's good, it's not my go-to, and I think that's fine. Next is retopologizing, because we cannot work with a billion polygons. The retopology was pretty standard. It was, you know, the loop around the lips, the one around the nose and lips, eyes together, single eyes, around the entire face, etc., etc. The approach I did have to modify a little bit was the lips, because, well, the lips and the cheeks, because there's not really much cheeks, there's lots of lip though. Sebastian's mouth is very stretched towards the sides. Well, not stretched, but it's a very big mouth. It's a broad mouth with big lips, and it's just not the usual human shape, so I had to make up some things just based on what I knew about what edge flow should be in the face and such. And the same with the body, around the chest and the back and the hips and stuff. I don't remember what the tutorial said. It was Dika's Ultimate Guide to Character Modeling, in case you want to know that, but it did say something along those lines. The weirdest part, mostly, however, was just the lack of symmetry, because the model is not symmetric in itself. I can't really just use the mirror modifier as cleanly here. I have a third arm that's intercepting with muscles into the side, and my two main pectorals are not the same size in the slightest. And then in the forehead, I have a third eye that's not in the middle of the forehead. So yeah, those were the mainly weird things to figure out about the retopology process. Pretty much halfway through, I realized I didn't do the gills. I wanted to do gills because Fishman has gills, and so I made them on the neck and on the sides of the body, because the gills on the neck alone are not gonna be able to oxygenate freaking 34 feet of muscle, especially not just up there. You're gonna have to need extra steps for that. Also, I decided to make the gills frilled. You know, like those are frilled sharks. Instead of just slits, they are slits with flaps. Here I don't make the flaps in the sculpting process, otherwise it will just cover up a lot of things and make it very unclear for me what I want to do, because I did plan on rigging these gills so they could, you know, flare around and stuff. And so I just did the outline of them there, and I'm just gonna do the flaps a bit later. Honestly, they helped me a lot when it came to what to retopologize and where, because I was no longer dealing with just small muscles that were smooth but not really, and no longer dealing with just having a big grid, because while specific loops around specific areas are not that necessary for the body when it comes to like its muscles, for me, at least for my perfectionism, is just a thing. But the gills helped me a lot to know what and where to put geometry. The hands were also an interesting thing to figure out, because again, this is my first time doing retopology, and I did look up a tutorial, and the tutorial was very useful. It was just that I didn't know what to do with the hands and how to do it, because really my low poly hands are very different from the hands I use here. At the end, once I got rigging and once I actually tested out if my geometry was good geometry, the hands deformed almost perfectly. So I shall recommend that tutorial. I've put it on the screen somewhere, probably in the description of the video or something. So yeah, that was fun. That was so time consuming, but it was fun. Back to lack of symmetry problems. I tried to complete the body without the third arm and without the third eye, and then I tried to do the third arm and third eye separately, retopologize those separately with their asymmetrical anatomy, and then figure out later how to integrate them in, which is what I'm doing right now. With some of them, I had to separate into two different meshes, the mesh that was symmetrical and the mesh that was not symmetrical. And it was tricky, it was weird, it was very, very weird to think about, but I managed to do it. Here, again, as I said before, I extruded the gills separately without the sculpt, because, again, they overlap. They are just in the way once it comes to sculpting, and it's just easier to do it this way. Now, why frill gills, you may ask? Sebastian is huge, and a huge body is gonna need huge amounts of oxygen. Frilled sharks, which is where I borrowed these gills from, frilled sharks have, flappy gills, because then they have a higher surface of oxygen intake. The way gills work is that fish will push water through their mouths into the gills that are pretty much connected to the mouth cavity, and push them through, and the gills will just collect the oxygen off the water. So it's not like breathe in, breathe out, but like just push water under your tongue. And so I made the gills frilled again, not because, well, in frilled sharks, rumor has it frilled sharks have frilled gills because certain parts of the deep sea have very little oxygen, and that their gills are frilled as an adaptation to that. Because one of the working theories on why their gills are floppy is because they have a higher surface area of oxygen intake, and it might help them get more oxygen into their bodies, especially in areas with very little oxygen. That's just a hypothesis, it's not really proven, but hey, I can steal a working theory. With Sebastian, it's not necessarily that. I don't know how much oxygen there is in the lead van zone. It's pretty deep, but also I don't know the physics of it. Really, I just put them there not necessarily because he needs more oxygen. I mean, yeah, he needs more oxygen, but it's not necessarily because the water has very little oxygen. I don't know much about that need for more oxygen when it comes to Sebastian and the black side and the lead van zone, but I do know he has a very freaking huge body, and because he has a very freaking huge body, he's gonna need a lot of oxygen. And what better way to get lots of oxygen than getting bigger gills? Well, not bigger, longer gills that will actually aid to that. Now here I cut a lot of the process out, but if you guys are interested in full speed modeling videos of the entire process, just let me know in the comments. I do plan on making it anyways, but I still want to hear your guys' thoughts. Either way, that's yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes to retopologizing. This is not a tutorial by far. This is just me demonstrating and explaining my thought process and my actions here, so yeah, it's time to give this man a tail and clothes. I want to take just 10 seconds of your time to do a shameless plug of my Twitch channel. I am more active over there than I am here on YouTube. I stream Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and I am mainly streaming either art or video games. If you're interested in those things, go over there and check it out. Alright, how do I even go with this? We're modeling now. It's a bigger comfort zone. It's not retopology, it's not sculpting, it's just modeling. This is something I do basically on a daily basis whenever I'm making a 3D model. Yeah, it's just box modeling, but with higher resolution. Pretty straightforward. Had to test out a nice experiment with the division surface modifiers, of course, because that's what you do when you're making a mid-poly model. But other than I did stuff, I don't really know what to say. This was very, very time consuming. The tail was fun, was interesting. I wish I had used a different kind of design for the fins and the spiny fins and stuff, but it's fine, it's done. I would honestly feel too lazy to fix it. The entire model was just a pain and it took me weeks to make, so I'm just gonna be happy with the result. One thing I did like making though was the teeth, and the teeth were pretty fun to figure out. I just like how menacing they look. For the clothes, I tried different methods of sculpting, at least for the things I couldn't figure out how to make look good. I'm not used to making every single article of clothing separate. With low poly things, I usually just fuse them into the body and don't make like a separate shirt from the bare body, I just fuse them together. But it was interesting, again, time consuming. I even tried sculpting because clothing folds, I wanted clothing folds, but then I couldn't have them. I tried duplicating the base body mesh and, you know, expanding it, but eventually I just modeled it from scratch and put it there and hoped for the best, hoped it wouldn't just clip once we're rigging this thing, but hey, it's there and it ended up looking good. Fun thing for the scrambler, you know, for the backpack. I was wrestling with myself. I was wrestling, hey, I could make a new entire scrambler from scratch, you know, using a reference and making it myself from scratch. Or I could just grab this model I found online to use as a reference and just yoink. It had me struggling mentally because I don't know, I don't like thinking about ripping a model like that. You know, I don't want to steal or anything, but I just don't like modeling objects. It's not very appealing. Man, that sounds so bad. And I did fix up the geometry. I changed it a little bit and I did retexture it myself, so I'm just gonna hope that holds up. I'm not really planning on charging money for this thing if it ever becomes public anyways, so I think that should be good enough. I did the same thing with some baggies, ripping some parts of the original model for it and cleaning them up, obviously. It's just less painful. It just saves me a lot of time, really. And obviously, credits to whoever made the original Sebastian model, John Doe and Sketchfab, for making it available, and the devs of the game, of course. Hair, oh my gosh, I hated making the hair. It's just not fun. It's just time consuming. I have talked about this. I hate making hair. I hate that I have to make every single hair clump. I have to layer every single hair clump and do it from every single side I can think of, otherwise it will suddenly look like butt, and it's just again time consuming and confusing to figure out. And I hate making hair, but I made the hair, and even after I made the hair, I'm not that happy with the hair. I wish it looked different, but it is what it is, and I am not planning on touching it. That hair was also one of the things I was tempted to steal from the original model, but I just said, hey, suck it up, make the hair, alright? Just make the hair. The backs and the tail. I did have fun making the backs and the tail. I didn't just make them just there. I decided to scale them up in different ways, position them differently, make more arrangements, more variety when it comes to them, so I'm pretty happy with how they turned out. Also, I made a gun. I made a brand new gun because when it comes to triple barrel shotgun designs, I just like this one better instead of the straight line one. Just artistic preference. Other than this, I don't really know what else to say about the modeling process other than, yeah, I did this stuff. It's not really anything new to me. I mean, some things, but not really. And so I made the model, I guess. Moving on to rigging. Yeah, oh, rigging. Oh. So, rigging. We have a lot to uncover, but I'm just gonna try to go quickly through it because it's simpler than the amount of time it took me to do all of this. So, as usual with Auto Rig Pro, move the reference bones where they need to be, add the limbs and stuff you want, etc, etc. Yeah, whatever. I added 3 pairs of ears because, you know, fins in the ears and such. The rest of the fins, though, they had to be done custom made completely. It's because Auto Rig doesn't have everything you will ever probably need. It has a lot of things, which is very useful and very nice, but other than those basic usual essential features, it doesn't really have everything you might ever want or that might ever be necessary, and that's okay. So I just made the fins myself. The code used Auto Rig skirt thingy, and after setting up most of the bones, it would just go with the first binding and the first weight painting. You know, making the mesh follow the bones and such. Pro tip for eyelids though, add the extra loops for the deformation of them after you bind the bones to the mesh. It's just easier because then they just fade into the thing and stuff. Such a terrible explanation of these things. Dang! Attaching the clothes to the rig was unusually easy. I found out what data transfer is, and I am in love with it. At least for made poly models, it was the easiest freaking weight painting of my freaking life. Surprisingly enough, the hair was relatively easy and relatively fun to rig, especially with Auto Rig Pro's features of, just bind the selected vertices to the selected bones and such. And so it was pretty easy to do, pretty nice and simple and actually entertaining and therapeutic for once, especially when it comes to hair. For some reason, I decided to rig the gills. I could have done this with shape keys, and I could, honestly, that would have been so much easier and so much more effective to do, but still, I rigged the gills, and it turned out very, very freaking ugly. Why? Because it was just a weird thing to try and attach those bones to the torso and the neck, and they just ended up turning horribly. So if I ever fix this, I'm just gonna replace those with shape keys and such. But I'm feeling too lazy to do that, so that will be a problem for future me. The backpack was also rigged. I did it with this tutorial I will put on screen. It was pretty useful. Go check it out, I guess. I did modify a bunch of stuff with the final backpack design. A bunch of stuff with that, which at the end ended up kind of being unnecessary, but still, I felt like it for some reason, and I decided to make my life more complicated than it's supposed to be, as usual. And of course I rigged the gun, because I have to rig the gun if you're gonna be shooting that gun, and stuff like that. And yeah, that was rigging. Very, very overly summarized. A very, very oversimplified version of what actually happened during the entire freaking rigging process, but that was pretty much what rigging was, because the rest was just tweaking a bajillion things that were broken and I didn't know how to fix. And even after that, there's still a bajillion things that don't freaking work. Oh, yeah. Actually adding up the recorded hours, this took me 24 hours to make. This took 24 hours of work. Rigging alone, not even including modeling or anything else. Yeah, welcome to Blender. Next up is actually a very nice step. It's texture painting. So, we are finally out of rigging and we can finally give this guy some colors. So, the first thing we do is UV unwrap the model, of course. It's like when you grab one of these cube templates, you know, this sheet you can cut out and then fold into a cube. We're doing that, but backwards. We are grabbing the model and cutting it up into pieces and laying those pieces flat. So, yeah. Now, a lot of things I'm not doing them symmetrical because you can layer the UVs, but at least for the body and the torso and things like that, I'm not doing them symmetrical. First is stylistic choice, and second, I do want to do some asymmetrical designs there. I decided to go with 3 different textures instead of just everything on one texture because it's just better the resolution and it's less of a pain in the head. So it's one entire texture for the body and anything that's just the actual body itself. It's one for the clothes and anything that has to do with his clothes, his little bags, stuff like that. And then another separate one for the scrambler, for the backpack thingy. And lastly, one for the gun, because I forgot to add the gun into one of the previous ones, but that's fine. I honestly don't really care. it still ended up working out in the end. Now, texture painting is pretty much like painting in 2D, but in, you know, when you paint a minifigure and such. For painting, I did use the, what is it called? The paint system atom by this guy, and it was pretty fun and pretty good and pretty nice. Very, very useful. I'm very much thankful that I have that atom. So yeah, it's the reason why I usually choose to texture paint after rigging is because then it's easier to pose the model and, you know, close his eyes, open his mouth, and paint those things. And that way it's like I'm putting on makeup and I don't have to struggle or wrestle after I paint and then the deformations look ugly. So it's just easier to deal with in terms of workflow, and I really do prefer it that way. It's pretty fun. Usually you don't see it a lot in 3D modeling videos because a lot of people prefer to use procedural materials where you can just assign a color and assign things like that. But I usually prefer to just paint in what I want my models to look like. It's just easier, it's game engine friendly, and I have more control over what things look like, and I just like it a lot better. It looks prettier. It's pretty much how the arcane style became the arcane style. This is exactly the way that works, and I like it personally, so I'm gonna personally add it to my style of making models. And again, as you can see, it's easier to do it after rigging because you can pose the models and you can have more control over what things look like in certain poses. The hair I did make it procedural. I didn't really do textures or anything like that. I didn't unwrap it and paint it myself. I just did actual procedural. I just used an actually procedural material from a tutorial. I'll just put it up here and you can go check that out if you want to. Yeah, painting his face felt like putting on makeup on him and it was so fun to do. One thing that was time consuming was the fact that a lot of the textures just don't save the moment I wanted them to save. And that was annoying because I kept losing my progress over and over again, and it's just not fun. Now the scars, I did struggle a little bit to paint the scars just because I didn't know how to paint scars and such, but I did manage to figure out. It's just like, well, I don't know how to paint leaves, so I look up a tutorial on how to paint leaves, and now I paint leaves. Success. One thing I did forget, I forgot completely that his mouth is blue, that his tongue is blue and his mouth is blue, and so I made it this purpley reddish color, and I am so disappointed because I forgot it was like canonically blue, but I am too lazy to correct it again. Maybe I'll sometime, and I keep saying once I fix the model, which might not happen but might actually happen, I don't know, I don't really care, but if I do want to try and fix this model, I am going to do the color correction slide thingy, whatever, and actually make his mouth blue. But yeah, I forgot to make his mouth blue, and I wish I had made it blue, but it is how it is. There I did the tail to make him look like a sturgeon, like I wanted him to, because it's actually a very fun design. I think it looks good on him. Now, it's just pretty normal, same thing as painting in 2D. You have your base colors, then you shade them, then you add the highlights, add any details you want to add in, and rinse and repeat for every object you can find in there. So, yeah, it's nothing too hard. It's just doing the thing. Rinse and repeat with the clothes, with the scrambler, and yeah, just that. Oh, and I decided to make the cat from scratch for some reason. I think it turned out good enough. I'm proud of the final result-ish. I don't know, it's not my best work, but I think it looks good. I think it turned out good. Afterwards, it's a thing of adding some procedural stuff, mostly for stylistic and shading and interactions with light. But the main texture is just this, and I really, really like how it turned out. And guess what? We're done! At least technically we're done. So, what have I learned from this? First and foremost, I learned how to make a mid-poly 3D model, which is very good. It gives me the experience I would need in any other occasion, in case I do need to make a mid-poly model. And at least now I know roughly what I should do once I make one. But at the same time, would I make it again willingly? Probably not. Unless it's a commissioned work that's giving me $1,000+ or something like that. It's mostly because it was draining and it was a time-consuming process. At least this kind of process I just made. I would definitely try to make a template first to be able to go off of with a 3D model. And yeah, it was a good process, but it's not something I would repeat because it left me oddly burned out and oddly off of the idea of trying to fix this model. That's another thing. I would have loved to publish this model and make it available for the public, for people to animate and such, but it's still kind of broken, and I really don't feel like fixing it. At least not anytime soon. I feel like I want to focus a bit more on my usual kind of art, which is a low poly style, but different, obviously. And I do want to work on projects that do give me some more enjoyment. Projects in which I can be in a more of a flow state instead of just learning, new experience, new everything state. But I am still thankful that I made this. I am still thankful that I worked on this project, even if it's still very buggy and if it's still very much not finished. So, was it good for me? Yes, but never again. Never again. I hope you enjoyed watching this process video. It was an interesting thing to do, and it was very challenging but also a good experience for me. I do plan on uploading the speed modelings of each part individually because most of it all was cut out in this video, but I think it would be cool for you guys to be able to have this other sped up footage in case you want to see a little bit more of what was the process itself like. Also, if it's of your interest, I have a gaming channel-ish that has only like 3 videos, but there's a pressure video if you want to see me playing pressure. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed watching. Drink some water, like, subscribe if you are looking out for more Blender videos, and I do wish you a nice day, night, or rest of your week. Goodbye. Because the muscles are always... Because the muscles are all... And my favorite part was the muscles, because the muscles are... Because the muscles are... Oh my goodness. Because the muscles are... Blah, blah, blah. Because the muscles... Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to make a blooper section now. But yeah, the gills help... Okay. The gills helped a lot to retopologize. They helped do it properly. With rigging, I'm gonna... Oh my goodness. With rigging, I'm gonna try to... Wows. Best spent... Shush.